The backyard was decorated with silver and blue balloons. A banner read, "Congratulations, Dr. Hayes." Across the patio, 30 people, colleagues, mentors, friends, milled around, congratulating me on finishing my doctorate in biochemistry. 7 years of research, 4 published papers, and a dissertation defense that had gone better than I'd dared hope. My sister Nicole arrived an hour late with her 6-year-old son, Tyler. She didn't apologize for being late. She didn't congratulate me. She grabbed a plate of food, sat at the far table, and scrolled through her phone while Tyler ran wild. I was talking with my former advisor when I heard glass shatter. Tyler had knocked over someone's wine glass while chasing another kid. Nicole glanced up, shrugged, and went back to her screen. I excused myself, cleaned it up, smiled at the guests. Kids will be kids. 20 minutes later I was standing near the gift table where I'd set my framed diploma, the official one from the university, embossed, sealed, representing 7 years of my life. My advisor had just handed me a card when Tyler sprinted up, snatched the diploma off the table, and before I could move, ripped it straight down the middle. The tearing sound sliced through every conversation. Tyler held up the 2 pieces and shouted at full volume. "Mom says you're not smart. She says you just read books all day and waste money." The backyard went dead silent. Nicole walked over, looked at the shredded diploma, and high-fived her son. Then she laughed. Not an embarrassed laugh. A real, amused one. "He's not wrong," she announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. 7 years for a piece of paper. Must be nice to play student while the rest of us work real jobs. I stood there holding the torn halves. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't rise. I looked at my sister's smirking face, at her son mimicking her laughter, and said quietly, "Understood." I handed the pieces to my best friend, walked inside my own house, grabbed my laptop and phone, got in my car, and left my own graduation party. I drove to a coffee shop, claimed a corner booth, and opened my property management portal. 3 years earlier I had bought a small 4-unit apartment building outright with research grant money, teaching income, and a modest inheritance from Grandpa Hayes. I kept ownership private through an LLC. My property manager, Tom, handled everything. Nicole lived in Unit 2B. She had applied like any other tenant. Tom approved her without ever realizing she was my sister. She paid $1,200 a month, usually 5 to 12 days late, racking up late fees she loved to complain about in the family group chat. I pulled up her file. Current status: 8 days late on this month's rent. 17 late payments in the last 36 months she'd lived there. The lease was crystal clear. Habitual late payment is grounds for non-renewal or termination. I drafted an email to Tom, attached the payment history, and called him. "Tom, it's Dr. Hayes. Begin eviction proceedings on Unit 2B for chronic late payment. File the notice first thing tomorrow morning. I want it served by 9 a.m. A pause. "You're sure?" "That's aggressive." "I'm sure." "Your property, your call. I'll have the attorney draft it tonight." I hung up, stayed in that coffee shop until closing, then checked into a hotel. I wasn't ready to go home and face the wreckage of my party. The next morning at 8:30 Tom texted me a photo. The eviction notice taped to Nicole's door. Official. Legal. Undeniable. By 8:45 my phone was exploding. Nicole called 14 times. I let them all go to voicemail. At 10 o'clock my mother rang. "Nicole says she's being evicted. Do you know anything about this?" Why would I know anything about Nicole's housing situation? She says the landlord is unreasonable. Something about late payments. Can you help her? Maybe lend her money for a lawyer? No. No. Just like that. She's an adult who signed a lease she's violated repeatedly. That's between her and her landlord. You're still upset about yesterday. I know Tyler shouldn't have torn your diploma, but kids do things. Tyler repeated, word for word, what Nicole tells him, that I'm not smart, that I waste money. And Nicole high-fived him for it in front of 30 people at my graduation party. She was joking. You're too sensitive. I'm not sensitive. I'm done. By noon the family group chat was on fire. Nicole had posted asking for tenant rights lawyers, painting herself as a victimized single mom. My brother DM'd me. Heard your side. Nicole's been late 17 times and you're the landlord she's always complaining about? Damn. I muted the chat. The next day, Nicole demanded a meeting with the property owner. Tom scheduled it for 2 p.m. at his office. I arrived at 1:45. Nicole walked in at 2 o'clock sharp, saw me sitting next to Tom, and froze. What are you doing here? I own the building, I said calmly. I'm the landlord. That's not possible. You're a student. You don't have money. I have a doctorate in biochemistry, 3 years of postdoc income, grant money, and grandpa's inheritance. I bought the building 3 years ago. You've been living in my property while calling me stupid. She stared, mouth open. You're evicting me because I hurt your feelings about a diploma. I'm evicting you because you've been late with rent 17 times in 36 months. The lease you signed allows termination for habitual late payment. This has nothing to do with feelings. Tom slid the folder across the table. Every late payment, every NSF fee, every ignored warning notice. Nicole flipped through it, face growing redder with each page. So you've been keeping score, waiting to kick me out. I've been running a rental property professionally. You've been violating your lease chronically. This is revenge. This is a business decision based on documented lease violations that predate yesterday by years. Where am I supposed to go? I have a kid. You have 60 days, per state law. Plenty of time to find housing if you start looking instead of playing victim. I can't come up with first, last, and security somewhere else. That's almost $4,000. I'm aware. I'm a landlord. She stood, chair scraping. The family's going to hear about this. They already have. You just left out the part where I'm the landlord you've been bad-mouthing for 3 years. She stormed out. That night my mother called again. Nicole told me you own her building. You're really evicting your own sister. Yes. How could you do this to her? She has a child. And she destroyed my diploma, taught her child to mock my education, and laughed about it in front of my colleagues. I'm done subsidizing that. She was wrong but making them homeless. I'm enforcing a lease she violated 17 times. She has 60 days. That's more grace than she showed 7 years of my work. Mom hung up without goodbye. 58 days later Nicole moved out. 2 days before the sheriff would have done it for her. The apartment was left in decent shape. Tom deducted cleaning and blind repair costs from her security deposit and mailed the rest. I ordered a replacement diploma from a university. $50, identical to the original. I framed it and hung it in my office next to my published papers. 6 months later we were at a family dinner. Tyler ran up to me unprompted. Mom says I shouldn't have ripped your paper. She says you're actually really smart. I glanced at Nicole. She was staring at her plate, cheeks flushed. Thank you, Tyler, I said. I appreciate that. Nicole and I exchanged basic pleasantries and nothing more. I later learned she'd been rejected by several landlords once the eviction hit her record. She finally found a new place. $400 a month instead of $1,200, with 2 months deposit up front. She had to borrow the money from our parents. Unit 2B rented in 12 days to a quiet couple who pay on the 1st of every month. No drama, no excuses. Some people say I was too harsh. That family deserves endless chances. But being family doesn't give anyone the right to destroy your achievements, mock your worth, and still expect you to bankroll their life. Nicole lived in my building for 3 years while telling everyone I wasn't smart. She paid rent late but eventually while calling my career a waste. She let her son rip my doctorate in half and laughed about it. I gave her 60 days and followed every letter of the law. That's more grace than she ever showed me. I can live with my decision. She has to live with hers. And Tyler, hopefully, is learning that words matter, actions matter, and you can't tear up what someone else has built, especially when you're living inside something they built.